स्टडी IQ IAS, अब तैयारी हुई अफोर्डेबल।
Hello students, welcome to StudyIQ's initiative, the podcast. I am your host Dipansh Moorjani. So get your juices flowing because it is time for the podcast of the day. In the last episode of the podcast, we had discussed all the provisions related to Speaker of the Lok Sabha in detail. So all the new listeners out there, you can listen to our previous episodes not only on YouTube but also on all the audio streaming platforms like Spotify, Hubhopper, Apple Podcast, etc. In today's episode, we are going to discuss leaders in Parliament. When we talk about leaders in Parliament, there are two leaders. One is Leader of the House and the other is Leader of Opposition. Sir, first things first, can you give us some important information about Leader of the House which becomes relevant from our examination point of view?
The leader of the house is either house in an important functionary and exercise direct influence on the conduct of business. Leader of the house can also nominate a deputy leader of the house. Offices of the leader of the house is not mentioned in our Constitution of India. However, they are mentioned in the rules of the house. Under the rules of Lok Sabha, the leader of the house means the Prime Minister, if he is a member of the Lok Sabha, or a minister who is a member of the Lok Sabha and is nominated by the Prime Minister himself to function as the leader of the house. Leader of the house also acts as the spokesperson of the house. He maintains coordination between all sections to facilitate harmonious debate in the parliament or in Lok Sabha. Leader of the house is consulted by presiding officer with the arrangement of government businesses. In the Rajya Sabha, there is also a leader of the house. He is a minister, and he can be either a minister or can be a member of Rajya Sabha. And he can be a nominated member also by Prime Minister to function as leader of the house for Rajya Sabha. In United States Congress, leader of the house is known as the majority leader.
Sir, after understanding all the provisions about Leader of the House, we are curious to understand everything about Leader of Opposition.
Leader of the opposition is also not mentioned in the Constitution of India. However, it is mentioned in the Parliamentary Statute. In each Houses of Parliament, there is the Leader of Opposition, which is LOP. The criteria for Leader of Opposition is that the leader of the largest opposition party, having not less than 1/10 seats of the total strength of the House, is recognized as the leader of the opposition in that House. However, this 10% criteria was bent during when the Congress did not achieve the 10% criteria, even though they were the largest opposition party in the House. Historically, official leader of the opposition was recognized for the first time in 1969. Leader of the opposition in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha was accorded statutory recognition in 1977. In that act, some conditions were specified for leader of opposition, which are as follows. Number 1, he should be the member of the house. Number 2, he should be leader of the party in opposition having greatest numerical strength. Number 3, he should be recognized by the presiding chair. The main function of leader of opposition is to provide a constructive criticism of the policies of the government and to provide an alternative to the government. Leader of opposition has status, salary, allowances and other facilities which are equivalent to that of a cabinet minister. Ivor Jennings described the leader of opposition as the alternative prime minister. In the United States Congress, leader of the opposition is also known as minority leader.
Sir, as you had mentioned that Leader of Opposition should be considered as an alternative Prime Minister. Similarly, there is an institution of shadow cabinet which provides an alternative cabinet to the ruling cabinet. However, when students study the provisions of shadow cabinet, they often get confused. So can you elaborate the same in simple words?
This unique institution called the shadow cabinet exists in the British political system. Shadow cabinet formed by the opposition party to number 1, balance the ruling cabinet And number 2, to prepare its member for future ministerial offices. In this shadow cabinet, almost every member in the ruling cabinet is shadowed by a corresponding member in the opposition cabinet. Shadow cabinet also serves as the alternative cabinet if there is a change of government. This is because when a sudden change of the government happens, the smooth transformation of the government and there is an assurance for non-hindrance in the governance of country.
Sir, how do you see the role of opposition in our country?
Role of opposition is to hold the government accountable for executive and legislative actions. And role of opposition is also to question and occasionally confront logical and persuasive arguments in the parliament. And another role of the opposition is to criticize government constructively and objectively. Opposition also presents an alternative perspective for any policy making or any step taken by the current government. Opposition have a responsibility to highlight government's lapses and lacunas, which will eventually make the policy sound. Opposition will also shape and direct the public opinion to hold the current government accountable, and current government will always feel the pressure and accountability in this sense. Opposition also helps in shaping the agenda of the government. If the opposition is pressing on some issue, then government will also make some provisions on that issue. This is where the opposition is shaping the agenda of government. The role of opposition is also to provide critical inputs and feedback in policy formulation so that the ultimate aim for nation's good will be achieved.
Sir, can you make us aware about the issues which are related to quality of opposition in our country?
Till 1977, the Congress was a very dominant force. However, the opposition, though had a very small number, was more effective due to high quality membership. For example, Atal Bihari Vajpayee. However, today's institution of opposition facing following problems, which are number 1, fragmented and obstructionist approach in dealing with issues, and they are not focusing on the constructive part of the opposition. The opposition is also having lack of belief in the debate, dissent and discussion, which are 3 Ds important for the parliamentary discussions. The opposition is also failing in performing its most fundamental and basic duties of holding a government accountable in the real-time issues. Opposition had a problem with questionnaire, lacks quality and content of the questions also. This ultimately deteriorating the quality of discussion in the House, and this is leading to the policies which are not criticized in a very sound and informed manner. These all are the issues in our Indian opposition at this moment.
Sir, can you elaborate some solutions to these issues so that it can help us in our mains answer writing as well?
To recommend some way forwards to how an opposition can improve is that number 1, opposition should work as an alternative option. Opposition should focus on critical analysis of policy and programs. Opposition will also have a reliance on orderly debate, discussion and dialogues, which is 3D. Opposition should raise ethical moral standards for themselves so that the jumping onto the well and the obstructions in the parliamentary functions will not happen. Opposition should have integral and coordinated approach in dealing with issues which are very important for the Indian context. Opposition should provide inputs and feedback to the government to improve policy formulation and implementation as well. The role of opposition is very much critical to uphold the democratic values in India, and the quality of parliamentarians is also very important in both the parties, whether it is in government or whether it is in opposition. So these two together will improve the parliamentary discussions in India, and therefore they will achieve the sound policy making for the greater citizens and will achieve the nation's good.
Sir, thank you for giving us the information. Dear listeners, it is time to pull the strings down for this episode of the podcast. In the next episode, we will discuss another topic. Till then, stay connected with StudyIQ and keep studying. You can listen to StudyIQ Presents the podcast on various audio streaming platforms like Spotify, Hubhopper, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Kuku FM, etc. Links are pinned in the comment section below. Thank you.